I just want to say how happy I am and what an honor it is to be here amongst the Amish community. I was a little hesitant coming out here, to be honest with you. I did it as a favor to Verl because him and I become good friends. And I wanted to get to meet all you people, but I was afraid that the last time an Italian from Brooklyn was walking around Nappanee, Indiana with a firefighter's uniform, he was probably in the witness protection program. And truthfully, I was supposed to be on a yacht with Jennifer Lopez today in the south of France, but I'm in Nappanee, Indiana. Who cares? Does it get better than this? But I want to say, Verl, thank you for the opportunity. This has been a great pleasure to come out here. I'm going to share a story with you today, and I'm going to try and make it light. It's a very, very serious story because anybody who's 28 years of age or older would remember where they were on the day America was attacked 4 times in 3 different locations, twice in New York City, within 17 minutes of each other. Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where the flight crew and the passengers overtook the terrorists in the cockpit and took down United Airlines Flight 93, and it crashed in a lonely field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, before it probably would have struck the Capitol in Washington, D.C. And of course, after that, American Airlines 77 had struck the Pentagon. So everybody all around the world was glued to their TV sets wondering, how could this have happened to America? People in America, people like us, didn't think anything like this could ever happen to us, but it did. And today I'm going to share my own very special story with you. But you know what? I always open up my presentation with some humor, because people like to joke around, like to make it light a little bit. Matter of fact, my wife, she was telling me, I don't think it was a good idea for me to come here because of the pandemic. I said, don't worry about the pandemic. That's not what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is, I don't know if you heard of the new Amish flu. Does anybody hear of it? You're laughing. You think this is a joke. This ain't a joke. This is serious. There's an Amish flu going around. Because first you get hoarse and then you feel a little buggy. You're not even paying for the humor. But you know what? This is a true story. In between my shifts in the fire department back home in New York City, I was also doing the fire safety security for the Empire State Building. And this is going back a couple of years ago, and a family from Lancaster, Pennsylvania came in, the Millers, John, his wife Mary, and his son Daniel, and his daughter Sarah. And they came in the first time, they were feeling out of place, like I feel out of place here. You walk around Amish people in New York City, people stop and look, they don't understand the Amish people because you never saw the Amish people before. I always went up to Lancaster, Pennsylvania when my kids were small, just to get them to understand how other people live. But most people in New York City never saw an Amish person. If they saw you, they try to wonder, you must come from another country. They just don't get it. So this family comes in from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Amish family, John and Mary and his son, Daniel and his wife, his daughter Sarah, and they're in the lobby as I'm checking out the fire alarm system, and the elevator door opens up, and this old lady is in a wheelchair with oxygen tanks, and she wheels herself into the elevator, the doors closed, and they're wondering what happened to her. And they're looking above the elevator with the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 102. And they're looking, and then the numbers come all the way down. It opens up, and this beautiful young blonde girl comes out of the elevator. And so John says to his son Daniel, quick, push your mother in there. So in my presentations, ladies and gentlemen, I hope these Amish women are going to hate me after this. I don't even blame you. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I actually started my stage appearance as a ventriloquist. I don't do it anymore because I got myself into a lot of trouble with some people. I was telling dumb blonde jokes. I'm sorry. Like, did you hear about the blonde who broke a leg? She fell out of a tree raking leaves. Did you hear about the blonde who locked her car keys with the convertible down? And why do blondes look up in the air and smile when they see lightning? They think somebody's taking their picture. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to share a very special story with you. Okay? Everybody that's 28 years of age or older remembers where they were when they heard the news when America was attacked back on September 11, 2001, a little more than 20 years ago. I remember the day when President Kennedy was assassinated. I was 8 years old on that day, and I remember it vividly. So people that are 28 years of age or older, you remember where you were when it seemed like the world had stood still. And many stories have been told and documented in the last 20 years. You know, there's been personal accounts like mine, there's been documentaries, there's been movies, there's been magazine articles, there's been books that have been written. And so what happened was, when I got out of the hospital, as I go through my story, I decided to become a tour guide at Ground Zero. And that's what I do on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, we're going to auction off a tour tonight. Verl's going to auction off a tour. The highest bidder that wins the tour of the auction, I'm going to take you on a private tour if you come to New York City. It's a very, very exciting tour, and you get to relive the day in New York City at the spot where I was buried alive. You get to really relive the day through the words of somebody like me who survived it, and I'm one of the few survivors. I was declared dead for 3 days. And I'm going to share that story, as I do when I take people on a tour of Ground Zero back home in New York City. And I started doing this back in 2006. I represent the September 11 Family Association. It's a group of people who lost loved ones on the morning of September 11th. They came and formed an organization because they had a lot of issues that they had to deal with the death of their loved one. And so what happened was, people were coming to New York City immediately after the attack from all parts of the world, wondering what was it like to have been there on that day. And people were coming and capitalizing, selling them stuff. And we didn't want people to be capitalized on, so we formed an organization where we were able to open up a visitor center before the museum opened up back in 2006. And when people like you came to New York City, you would meet somebody like me who started the program, and I would take you on a walking tour as a volunteer and share the day with you and give you an opportunity to ask the kinds of questions you might be curious about and learn about the incident in a very correct and respectful way. And over the years since I started this program, there's now about 350 of us that conduct these tours back home in New York City. Every one of us has a different connection to the day of September 11th. Some of us were first responders like me. Some of us were survivors like me. Some of us were victims like me. Some of us worked in the towers. Some lost loved ones. Some lived in the area. Some were members of volunteer organizations like the American Red Cross. Some were people that worked for construction companies that came down to rescue and recovery. So all the volunteers who conduct the tour, we conduct the tour from a different perspective. And every perspective is different and very interesting. This woman who just started volunteering with me a couple of months ago, a woman by the name of Peggy. Peggy worked on the 104th floor of the North Tower. And she lived across the river that separates Manhattan from New Jersey, the famous Hudson River where Sully Sullenberg landed the jet a number of years ago. And Peggy would leave her apartment in New Jersey, and there was a train that went underneath the Hudson River and terminated at the base of the Twin Towers. She would get off of the train, get on an escalator, go up to the lobby level, and then take an elevator up to the 104th floor in the North Tower. She'd been doing that for 18 years. The night before September 11th, Peggy had gone out shopping for some new clothing. It was the end of summer, the fall season was coming about. She wanted a new wardrobe. So, you know, women like going out shopping, and while she was shopping, Peggy found a pair of shoes she had been looking for a long time. I don't know what it is about this certain pair of shoes that caught her fancy, but there was a pair of shoes that caught her fancy. She had been looking for these pair of shoes for a long time. And she tried them on, but the shoes were about a half a size too small. But like everything and anything, we've all done this. We see an article of clothing, the men get a sports jacket, and women get a lady's dress. We put it on, it's a little too small, but we convince ourselves that we're going to make it fit or we'll lose weight and it's going to fit. So Peggy bought these pair of shoes that she had been looking for, even though they were half a size too small. The following morning on September 11th, Tuesday of 2001, she gets up and she puts on her new clothing, a new dress, a new skirt, a new jacket, and she puts on the new shoes, and she's walking from her apartment the 4 blocks she has to go to catch the train that would take her underneath the Hudson River to the World Trade Center. And as she's walking, she's feeling like Lottie-Dottie with her new clothes and her new shoes. And after about 3 blocks from her apartment, 1 block short of the train station, she stops and she realizes that these shoes are really too tight. They're starting to cut into her feet, and Peggy's got to make an impromptu decision. She says to herself, what am I going to do? Am I going to continue going to work and be in pain all day, or should I be smart? Go back home, change the shoes, and take them back at a later date. And that's what Peggy did. Peggy went back home to change the shoes. And in doing that, she missed the last train that made it to the World Trade Center. Peggy would have been on the 104th floor, 11 floors above the point of impact. Peggy would have been dead had it not been for an ill-fitting pair of shoes. So there's so many of these ironic stories, good ones, bad ones, happy ones, and sad ones. My story might be the most interesting and ironic story that anybody has ever heard, and I'm going to share it with you tonight. I'm going to give you all an opportunity later on when I meet you personally. You can ask me any kind of question you want. You can share your stories with me, so I welcome that. Back in the 1970s, the test was coming out for the New York City Fire Department. I actually wanted to be a police officer. I was actually going into the police academy before I got called by the fire department. But all my friends wanted to be firefighters, and they had an extra application. They were going to take the test. They said, Joe, we're going to take the test for firefighter. We've got an extra application. Why don't you take the test with us? I said, okay. They said, afterwards we'll go out for a couple of beers. I said, give me the application. Let's go. The beers was what drew me, right? But anyway, I was the only one who passed the firefighter's test. They all failed. I became a firefighter just to get them angry. But they all wanted to be firefighters. But you know what? The test was so difficult, 6 men died taking the physical. That's how difficult it was. So I passed the test in January of 1981. I got sworn into the New York City Fire Academy. I was just going to try it out. I was going to get sworn in. I was going to quit the next day. I was going to be a firefighter for one day, and forever and ever, when me and my friends got together for a reunion later on in life, I was going to say I was a firefighter and you weren't. But you know what? That one day turned into 25 years, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. This job became a religion to me. Although I went to 12 years of very strict Catholic schooling, I had gotten away from religion, unfortunately. I was confused with religion. It haunted me, it bothered me. I was depressed. I was even confused about religion. 12 years of Catholic schooling. Who was I? What was I supposed to be? And after about 20 years being on the fire department, I got up for work at 9 o'clock in the morning, but somebody called in sick, and they needed me to stay on for the next shift. And so I took a shower real quick before I started my second shift, and I was in the bathroom in the firehouse, and I was shaving. And for the first time, this patch resonated in the bathroom mirror in my eyes, and I realized I had become part of something greater than myself. I had become part of an organization that would be willing to lay down our life so that somebody else might live, and this renewed my vows and my religion and Christianity. I was something more in the eyes of Jesus Christ, that I'd be willing to give up my life like he did on the cross. And that's so very, very profound. And I carry this now all throughout my life. So after graduating the fire academy, the training session, of all firehouses they could arbitrarily place me to start my career, they chose this little firehouse right across the street from the World Trade Center. That firehouse used to be on the grounds of the World Trade Center. They knocked the firehouse down, 167 other buildings to build the Twin Towers back in the 1960s. And in turn, they built a new firehouse across the street, and that's where I started my career. I was there for 16 years protecting those towers. And after about 16 years being in that firehouse as a firefighter, with no pun intended, I would start getting ready to climb the ladder, no pun intended. I wanted to become a lieutenant, maybe a captain, possibly a chief. And I took a very, very difficult promotion exam, and on September 5th, 1996, 15 years later, I got promoted to lieutenant. It was the first step in my rise through the ranks of the New York City Fire Department. And shortly after getting promoted to lieutenant, on New Year's Eve, a couple of months later, I was working in a busy neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York, where I was born and raised. And I responded to this incident right here. We were the first fire engine on the scene, and when we got there, people were outside screaming and yelling. There's a woman trapped on the second floor in the rear of that building. We were the first ones there. And firefighters are like a football team. We have different positions. Some firefighters make their way up to the roof to start cutting holes. The other group, like me, takes hoses and goes inside to put the fire out. And as firefighters were up on the roof cutting holes to let the fire heat the gas and the flames out, I was moving up the interior stairs to the second floor. And above the staircase on the roof was a glass skylight. And firefighters smash out the glass skylight. It's easier than cutting holes in the roof. And as I was going up the stairs, that glass skylight came down and went right through my hand and just about took my thumb off of my hand. And it cut our hose line in half. And now we had no water. We had already opened up the door on the second floor on the hallway. The fire came out. Guys were getting burnt. They were jumping headfirst down the stairs. I had a new firefighter. He was only 3 days on the fire department. He was getting burnt. I jumped on top of him so he wouldn't get burnt. Firefighters eventually came up with another hose. We put the fire out. And the woman who was never in the apartment, she was down the block having a cup of tea with her girlfriend. You know, people always give us erroneous information. Like one night I had another fire. This woman was screaming, please, 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 in the back of the house is my baby. You got to save my baby. When you hear that as a firefighter, you're going to make every attempt you can to make that rescue. And I got myself into the back of the apartment. I was actually getting burnt. My coat was actually on fire. I got into the rear bedroom where she said the baby was, and I was searching and searching. Sometimes kids will hide in drawers or hide underneath the bed, and I couldn't find it. I was running out of air. And they teach us to sweep your hand underneath the bed to feel for somebody, and I felt like a pinch, and a turtle bit me. So, I didn't find no kids, so I took the turtle, and I went outside and said, listen, miss, I didn't find your daughter, I found it. No, that's my baby, the turtle. I said, the turtle's your baby? I said, you put my life at risk for a turtle? Well, that's my baby, and I don't care what you say, what you think. I said, do me a favor, lady, if you ever have another fire, put the turtle in your pocket and run out of the house. So anyway, after this fire was out, what happened was that I was going to be out of work for about a year, convalescing from this injury. They had to stitch my left thumb back onto my hand. It was going to be a near career-ending injury. I didn't want my career to end. I was a new lieutenant. I was already studying for the captain's test. I was going to hopefully become a chief. And the fire department doctor says, look, we'll give you a chance to convalesce, but you're not going to convalesce at home. You've got to come to headquarters and take a desk job. Well, I never worked in an office in my life. I'm a carpenter, plumber, electrician by trade. I had no office skills. I had no idea what they would make me do if I worked in headquarters. So I showed up in headquarters with my arm in a cast, not wondering what they were going to have me do for the following year. And they said they needed people to work in their Office of Fire Safety Education. I didn't know we had an Office of Fire Safety Education. The gentleman who was handing out the assignment, I asked him, who are they, what do they do, and where are they? He says, look, they're up on room 712 on the 7th floor in headquarters. Go up there, introduce yourself. They'll give you something to do for the next year. Had my arm in a cast. I got on the elevator in headquarters. I went up to the 7th floor. I came out of the elevator. I was walking through the hallway. I saw room 712. I knocked on the door. I opened up the door. I walked in. And I bumped into an old friend by the name of Torrillo. Him and I were firefighters many years before. He was a new captain. I'm a new lieutenant. He said, hey, Joey, what happened? He said, somebody told me you got hurt. I said, yeah, I told about the fire there on New Year's Eve. He says, what are you doing here? What are you doing in headquarters? I said, I don't know, Tommy. They said, I'm going to be convalescing here in the Office of Fire Safety Education. He says, oh, that's great. He says, I'm running the program. So I said to myself, how bad is it going to be? My friend is going to be my boss. I said, Tommy, I got a big question for you. He said, yeah, Joey, what's that? I said, what do you do here? He says, I don't know, I just got here. But this is a true story. In essence, what happened was a whole group of firefighters like me that were convalescing from various injuries and illnesses. Because we couldn't be active in a firehouse, they would send us out to one of the 3,000 schools in New York City and go into the classroom and talk to kids about both preventing and surviving fires. I said, Tommy, look, before you go any further, I am not a public speaker. I don't have any background in teaching. I don't have any college credits in education. I said, Tommy, I don't really belong here. He said, Joey, don't worry about it. None of us belong here. This office is like a box of broken toys. Don't even worry about it. No pressure. Hang around the office. I'll teach you how to use a computer. You can help me do schedule and payroll. I said, all right, Tommy, look, I'm a team player. I get my paycheck every 2 weeks. I'll make the best of it. Just help me get through the next year. I want to get back into the firehouse. I said, Joey, no problem. And after about 4 months of learning how to use a computer, helping Tommy do some office work, I came into work one morning 4 months later, and Tommy says, Joey, I need a favor. I said, Tommy, what's that? He said, Billy just called in sick. I need you to go out and cover his classrooms today. And I knew eventually that this was going to happen. I had a lot of anxiety because I never got in front of a group of people to speak. Matter of fact, I'm still afraid of getting in front of people. to a certain extent. I mean, I'm getting better and better at it. Matter of fact, all my friends are always asking me, what is this new life like in your retirement? You're up on a stage, bright lights shining on you, people staring at you. I said, well, it reminds me of the old days back in Brooklyn, where me, my Uncle Tony, my Uncle Louie, my Uncle Vinny were in the police lineup for sticking up banks in Manhattan. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, what happened was, I'm working in the Office of Fire Safety Education, and after 4 months I went into a classroom, and you know what, it was a life-changing experience. In life, sometimes we end up on a road we didn't know was waiting for us. Life takes us down roads that changes us in so many different ways. Many of you are going to embark on a new career with Conklin, maybe going into the roofing business. Some of you might have thought, I never thought I would do this. It's something that just came up and I want to pursue it. You never ever know what road you're going down in anything that you pursue. And anything that you do pursue, make the best of it, because that's a decision that you make. So here it is. I'm now going out on a regular basis into all the schools in New York City. I'm actually getting to like it. I didn't know that I had a hidden talent to teach and speak. I was just always a very good communicator. And so what happened was I started getting so good at doing this, they got rid of Tommy and named me the boss of the program. And still till today, Tommy thinks I orchestrated this. And as the new director of the Fire Department's Public Education Program, I decided we should have a learning center where kids can go on a school trip. And I sold this idea to Mayor Giuliani. Mayor Giuliani loved anything that made him look good. But I took on a project of designing a learning center where kids can learn the messages of fire prevention and survival in a very theatrical way in a Disney quality venue. And I took on this project called the Fire Zone. I worked on that project for 2 years, day and night. I wasn't getting paid for the amount of time I put into this project, but my reputation was on the line, especially because I inherited the property in Rockefeller Center from Jerry Spire, who's Donald Trump times 10 with money and property. He gave me a piece of property to build this learning center in Rockefeller Center. He gave me a 10-year lease for $1, right next to Radio City Music Hall. I couldn't thank Jerry enough, and I actually said, Jerry, if you triple my rent in 10 years, I'll still call you my friend. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, there's an old saying that goes like this here. Be careful what you wish for, because you might get what you want. I had no idea what I was doing. I sold this great grandiose idea to the mayor, to the fire commission, to the city council. There was a lot of expectation coming out of this learning center. It was just a whim, it was an idea, it was a concept, but I didn't really know what this learning center could and should be. There were a million possibilities. And at the sake of not wanting to walk around with egg on my face and embarrassing me and the mayor and Jerry Spire, I took the 5 most common causes of fire where people die day after day, year after year, and I brought them to life in a Disney quality, a Broadway type of show in Manhattan called the Fire Zone. We opened in October 2000, and a month later got nominated for an Emmy Award, and I won an Emmy Award. I don't know where an idiot like me can win an Emmy Award, but you know what? Things happen in life. We won this very prestigious award in November of 2000 for this fire safety learning center called the Fire Zone. And after winning this prestigious award, 3 months later, in January 2001, I'm in my office in headquarters having a cup of coffee. It's a new year, promoting a learning center, and the phone rings. Fire Department headquarters, Lieutenant Torrillo. Hey, good morning, this is the Fisher-Price Corporation. I said, this is Fire Department headquarters, you got the wrong number. We don't have the wrong number, we want to speak to Lieutenant Torrillo. Okay, that's me, how can I help you? We want to run something you might be interested in. Okay, what's that? Are you familiar with the Fisher-Price Corporation? I think it's a household name in this country. They said no, more specifically, do you know anything about our little action figures we call rescue heroes? Truthfully, no. Well, let us explain it to you. Do you have some time to speak? I said, it's 9 o'clock and I work till 6 o'clock. Can you talk for 9 hours? Shoot, give it to me. What do you got? They said, we have a whole line of rescue heroes. They're called action figures that kids love. We have a little police officer called Jake Justice. We have his partner called Bill Barker. We have his boss called Sergeant Simon. We also have his boss called Captain Cuffs. And we have an ambulance attendant by the name of Perry Medic. We have a lifeguard called Sandy Beach. We have a construction worker called Jack Hammer. We have a mountain rescue specialist by the name of Cliff Hanger and his partner Rocky Canyon. We have a medevac pilot by the name of Hal E. Copter. We have a scuba diver called Gil Dripper. We have an astronaut called Roger Houston. We have a ski patroller by the name of Al Pine. We have a female firefighter called Wendy Waters. But we want a New York City firefighter to be our new rescue hero. Besides all these other rescue heroes, we want a New York City firefighter to be a rescue hero. We're going to call him Billy Blazes. If you help us design it, we'll give you $1 for every one sold around the world. That money was going to go in my education program, and I use that kind of funding to buy smoke detectors and give them out free to people in New York City who will be willing to listen to me for an hour on how to both prevent and survive a fire. In New York City, if you want to draw people to your audience, you got to give them something. If it's free, it's for me. If you're a firefighter, police officer, if it's free, can I have 3? So anyway, in January 2001, I sat down with the Fisher-Price executives, the artists, illustrators, toy designers, and for a whole day in a meeting in my office and headquarters, as I was speaking about what a firefighter looks like with his firefighting clothing, his air tank, his tools and equipment, the Fisher-Price artists and illustration toy designers had easels with art pads and crayons and markers. And as I'm speaking on their art pads, on their easels, they're drawing as I'm speaking about what a firefighter looks like. And at the end of the day, fully sketched out on their art pads, they had this new action figure, New York City firefighter for Fisher-Price Toys. His name was going to be Billy Blazes. They took the artwork and went to the factory. 6 months later, in July of 2001, they called us up for a meeting. They said, we got the mold and the prototype. We want you to look it over before it goes into mass production. I set up another meeting in the first week of July of 2001, and we looked over the mold and the prototype, and there were certain things that we thought they should kind of change and tweak a little bit. That's Billy Blazes. We don't have blue firefighting clothing. There were other things that we thought they should kind of change and tweak a little bit. And one of the executives from Fisher-Price Toys, she says, you know, Joe, he needs to look more like you. And she took out a black Sharpie and she drew a big mustache on Billy Blazes. And 3 weeks later, they remolded Billy Blazes with the changes we recommended, also with the big mustache. And they called us up and says, hey, we made the changes. We want you to look it over once again before it goes into mass production. So at the end of July, 2001, I set the third meeting, and they came down with the remolded Billy Blazes with the changes and the big mustache. That was me at the meeting, and this is the Billy Blazes, and I have him here today. The new rescue hero by Fisher-Price Toys, Billy Blazes. Well, you know what? The Fisher-Price Corporation was excited because we agreed to go into mass production. And they wanted to have a big press conference in New York City. They wanted to introduce Billy Blazes right in the heart of New York City. They said, where can we have a press conference? So I said, let's do the press conference at the Fire Zone. They said, what's that? It's a new learning center I designed. We won an Emmy Award for it. They said, oh my God, how apropos. We'll introduce the new rescue hero at the Children's New Learning Center. This is getting better and better. I was acting excited. I didn't think this was such a big deal. But in any event, they says, okay, we know where we're going to do the press conference at the Fire Zone, but when? Well, this was the end of July 2001. I said, let's do it in October. They said, why? I said, October's Fire Prevention Month. It's a natural tie to this project, and it gives us some time to get the press conference together, because this is the end of July 2001. I think October, we need 2 or 3 months to get it all together. They liked the idea, but it was too close to Christmas and the holiday season. They need to get Billy Blazes on the mark a little bit sooner. So October was too distant. This meeting was the end of July of 2001. I'm brainstorming. I couldn't think of another date in between that was appropriate. And I said, 911 is the emergency phone number in New York City. When you need help from the police, the fire department, or an ambulance, why don't we have for the first time a 911 themed safety day? We could talk about how to prevent fires, how to survive fires, and introduce this new rescue hero, a New York City firefighter called Billy Blazes. And the Fisher-Price executives thought, wow, that is a great novel idea. So ladies and gentlemen, on September 11, 2001, 911 is the date that I chose to introduce a new rescue hero to the world, the New York City firefighter called Billy Blazes. I got to my office early that morning on September 11th. I got there about 6 o'clock in headquarters. I wanted to catch up on typical office work, payroll and scheduling, emails, voicemails, and all that sort of stuff. And it was about 20 minutes to 9, and I realized I should have been at the press conference already. And next to my office, I had a conference room. I had 3 college kids that were coming to the press conference with me. They were in a special program trying to become firefighters called Fire Cadets. They went to the City University 3 days a week, and 2 days a week they volunteered with me. They were going to help me set up the press conference. I went to the conference room and said, guys, get your book bags. I'm running late, we got to get out of here. I went back into my office, the kids were getting their book bags. I put on my dress uniform, grabbed my car keys, my wallet, shut off the computer, and one of the college kids came running from the conference room back into my office to the planes at the World Trade Center. I'm like, what? He said, I swear to God, it's on the TV in the conference room. They interrupted the morning shows that the kids had been watching. I went back to the conference room, you see smoke come out of the North Tower. And I said to one of the college kids, is this a simulation? Is this a joke? Is this a hoax? Is this a movie? He said, no, I swear to God, this just happened. So I said, all right, guys, hurry up, get in the elevator. We got to get to the underground garage. We got to get in my car. We got to get out of here now before I get stuck in traffic. And I zoomed out of headquarters in Brooklyn. 2 blocks later, I was on the Brooklyn Bridge connecting into Manhattan. And as I'm going over the Brooklyn Bridge into Manhattan, I'm looking to the left about an eighth of a mile away, and I could see about 10 floors of fire all around the top of the North Tower. And it was a beautiful day. I remember that day like yesterday. The birds were chirping in unison like they were welcoming in the morning sunshine, bidding farewell to the ending of summer. And this is what I see. I realized this was no little Piper Cup. This had to have been a jet. So a lot of things are going through my mind. I don't know what to think. And I'm getting closer and closer. And it's more fire than I'd ever seen in all my years as a firefighter. I'm getting closer and closer. And now I got to make an impromptu decision. I'm thinking of all the TV stations that are waiting for me, all the newspaper reporters, the Fisher-Price executives, the mayor, the city council, everybody's waiting for me. This is a big day for Billy Blazes. And I'm thinking, what's it going to be today? What am I going to do? By the time I got over the bridge, I'm thinking, it's going to be Billy Blazes, or I make my way to my firehouse where I started my career across the street from the Twin Towers. And I said, the heck with Billy Blazes, this isn't happening today. And I made my way to my firehouse at 9 o'clock in the morning where I started my career. I left there in 96, as I told you before. In 1996, I got promoted to lieutenant, and they took me out of my firehouse and placed me in another area of New York City. So for 5 years, I hadn't been in that firehouse, but that was my original firehouse, and I knew all the firefighters there, and I realized I better get there because I had a lot of experience over the years with those Twin Towers and the whole World Trade Center complex. And I got there at 9 o'clock in the morning, 14 minutes after the first jet struck the North Tower, and I parked my vehicle in the back of the firehouse. Me and the 3 college kids ran around to the front of the firehouse, and although both fire engines had already responded to the North Tower, the doors of the firehouse were open. I couldn't get into the firehouse, even though the fire engines were gone. People like you were laying all over the firehouse floor. Some were crying, some were screaming, some were bleeding, some were in shock, some were burnt. They had been hit with jet fuel, pieces of the building. They were running to a firehouse with the doors open. They ran in there as a haven of safety and trampled each other, but nobody was in critical condition. I looked at everybody. Everybody looked like they were going to be okay, but needed some medical attention. And the 3 college kids had become emergency medical technicians in the program I was running for them. I said, treat these people as best as you can. If they want to go to hospitals, call ambulances, don't leave the firehouse. I said, I'll be back later. I don't know when I'm going to be back. I might not ever be back again. And I took my dress uniform, and I borrowed a helmet, boots, gloves, and jacket from another fireman who was off duty, Tommy McNamara. He was off duty. I took his firefighting clothing after I took my dress uniform off, and I ran out of the firehouse. And the building on the right with the antenna was the North Tower. And as I was running to the North Tower, I had to pass the South Tower, which is the building on the left. And as I'm running past the South Tower, I hear a noise, and I look up, and the second jet came right over my head. I was right underneath the second jet, the only one underneath it, and I watched United Airlines Flight 175 at 9:03 a.m., which happened to be my lucky number. And I see it hit the South Tower between the 77th and the 85th floor, and then the jet just disappeared like a magic hat. It hits the building and disappears, and at that point, there's a lot of things are going through my head. And this huge fireball now is coming right down at me from the top of the South Tower. It's coming right at me, and I turned around, and just before that fireball hit the ground, I made it back into the firehouse, and that fireball exploded right on the street where I was standing. I probably would have been killed right there. And all over New York City, people looking up wondering, what the heck is going on? This is no accident. We must be under attack. And I'm thinking that we'll never get to the people above the point of impact. It was obvious that we were never going to get to them. And at that point, people started hanging out the windows. One person started sliding down the outside of the tower. He slid down about 4 stories before he let go. And at that point, people were just jumping all around me. 200 to 300 people were just jumping out of the tower. Some people were coming holding hands, some were hugging each other. Some people coming to do tumble salts through the air, one after another. It was just so hard not getting hit by somebody. And I made an assessment. I said, the buildings are going to collapse. And people looked at me. They thought I was crazy. I said, everybody on the top of the buildings are going to die. They are not getting down, and we are not getting to them. And I said, the buildings are going to collapse. And people looked at me. They said, what, are you kidding me? I said, no, these buildings are going to collapse. These buildings are definitely collapsing. We got to move fast. We got to get people out of the building below the point of impact and the surrounding buildings because they're coming down. People thought I was crazy and foolish. They couldn't understand why I was saying that. Nobody knew I went to school for architecture and engineering before I was a fireman because I never spoke about it. But that's what I went to school for. That's my real passion, is the construction industry. And that's a picture of me in my first year of college in engineering school. My college ID card. And just like Minoru Yamasaki, the Japanese American who designed the Twin Towers, that's what we used to do in school. We used to design buildings, make models, and study them. And all the time I was in the firehouse after graduating college, I used to say to myself, why did I waste all my time reading these hideous textbooks? Matter of fact, anybody that writes a textbook should be in jail for life. Why did I stay up all night punching calculus calculations? Why did I stay up all weekend instead of going out with my friends playing basketball, drawing blueprints? And I always said to myself, what a waste of time going to engineering school. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Education is never wasted. Because all that education came back to me on the morning of September 11, 2001. Because when I was in engineering school, 2 of my professors that were civil engineers were working for the concrete contract on the Twin Towers. And they could take us on a class trip down to the towers when they were going up to study them. And I graduated engineering school not knowing I would become a firefighter. I got placed in the firehouse across the street from the Twin Towers. I'm back as a fireman protecting them and no longer an engineering student studying them. So I had an affection for those towers in a way that nobody ever realized. And on the morning of September 11th, all that education I thought was wasted was never wasted at all. It came back to me that day that gave me the ability to make the assessment that the buildings were going to collapse. And I knew that we would lose a lot of people, but I didn't want to lose the ambulance crews because those are the ones I knew were going to need the most, the EMTs and the paramedics. People talk about the biggest firefighting incident in history. This was not a firefighting incident at all. We didn't get a drop of water on that fire in either building. It was the biggest emergency medical response anybody ever witnessed, an evacuation. So knowing that the towers were going to collapse, excuse me, I didn't want to lose the EMTs and the paramedics. I told them they had to get away from the towers and they didn't want to leave. This is who are you? You got no authority. We don't work for you. And I didn't have the authority. I was giving myself the authority. They just didn't understand. I didn't want them killed. I knew we were going to lose a lot of people, but we need the EMTs and the paramedics mostly that day. And more ambulances are rushing to the scene, and I'm chasing them away from the Twin Towers. I said, go about 6, 7 blocks away and park ambulances away from the towers. The buildings are coming down. And this last crew was giving me a hard time. I almost got into a fist fight with them. This almost got physical. And then finally they realized that I was adamant. They got in their ambulance and drove away. And as I'm outside the South Tower, right in front of it, I hear a rumble and roar, and I look up, and here comes the South Tower. I put myself right in the collapse zone. I said to myself, you idiot, you're the one who knew the building was going to collapse and you put yourself right underneath it. I didn't think the collapse was going to happen that soon. I thought we had 5 to 6 hours, but in less than an hour and 55 minutes to be exact, the South Tower was already collapsing as I was underneath it, as I had already evacuated the ambulance crews. And I started running as fast as I can, and the South Tower was coming down what we call a pancake type of collapse, one floor hitting the floor below. 110 stories, boom, 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 boom. And as each floor is hitting the floor below, it's puffing out air pressure like a fireplace bellows. And I could feel the air pressure on the back of my neck as each floor is hitting the floor below. And I'm running as fast as I can because I'm trying to make it underneath the footbridge and went over the main thoroughfare. I thought if I made it underneath the footbridge, I would find and identify a piece of my body because I knew I had about 10 to 12 seconds left to live. And as I'm running, the air pressure got stronger and stronger. The air pressure took my helmet off my head, and my helmet was just flying through the air. It was flying faster than I was running. And then at some point, the air pressure was so strong that he estimated 200 miles an hour, almost like a tornado gust. It lifted me off my feet, and I was flying through the air. and a piece of steel hit me in the back of the head and split the back of my head wide open, and huge slabs of concrete would just hit my body. With every slab of concrete, more and more bones are breaking. Now, the back of my head split open, I got a fractured skull, all my ribs are broken, my left arm snapped in half, my neck and spine is crushed, and I'm bleeding internally, and I'm buried. And all around, people were running from that dust cloud. People were running in all different directions as this dust cloud started chasing people. People were running over bridges, over the Brooklyn Bridge, the Manhattan Bridge, anywhere they came to get out of Manhattan. The mayor and the governor were told to evacuate as this huge dust cloud was chasing people and covering all along Manhattan. I'm buried underneath this dust cloud. My whole body's broken apart. I'm suffocating. There's no more air left. There was no light. It was pitch black. And I was buried with all these other people as other people were running away. And under that dust cloud, you could see nothing. And all these people that were buried with me were 5, 6 feet away from me. We couldn't touch each other. We couldn't feel each other. We were all pinned under tons of steel and concrete. And one by one, all these people all around me were screaming at the top of their lungs. And those screams turned into cries, cries into whimpers, whimpers into silence. One by one, they had all died and I was still alive. And then I was in the middle of all these fires. And I did something I hadn't done in a long time. Even though I went to 12 years of Catholic schooling, I closed my eyes and I said a prayer. I thanked God for my career. And I said, God, just take me quick. I can't suffer no more. And a lot of things were going through my head. I had a flashback to the day that I was sworn into the New York City Fire Department 20 years before. And in that time I was buried, that recollection came back, and I took the vow that I'd be willing to lay down my life so that somebody else might live on becoming a new fireman in New York City. You know, I kept saying to myself, I was taking the last breaths of my life, why did I choose this career? Why did I never take this vow so seriously? Why did I choose this career? That's not what I was supposed to have done with my life. This is what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to build high-rise buildings. Why did I choose this career that took my life? And then I had an image of my 4 children. The night before September 11th, which was Monday on September 10th, I got home by 9 o'clock that night. I was out speaking in Manhattan. And my wife let my kids stay up late that night because they wanted to speak to me about something. And as soon as I walked through the door of my house, the kids were grabbing my briefcase and they were taking my coat. They were dragging me over to the couch in the living room. They said, Daddy, Daddy, sit down, sit down. You promised tonight that when you came home, we were going to make a date to go to Disney World. That's all they ever wanted. They kept begging me to go to Disney World, and I kept putting it off because of the Fire Zone Children's Learning Center, the project with Billy Blazes. I was just too busy in life, and I put my kids on the side. And all I kept on saying to myself, as I was taking my last breaths of life, a new man is going to come into my wife's life. Who's going to be the new daddy that's going to have the joy of taking my kids? Why did I not take them? That's all my kids ever worried about or asked me for. And then I had an image when I was a kid. I thought about my twin sister. She survived polio in January of 1960. She's alive today. When she hears the news that I'm dead, she's going to have a nervous breakdown. And the rest of my brothers and sisters are never going to be the same, because I was like, even though I was one of the younger ones in the family, I was more like the head of the family. And then unfortunately, last May, my older sister suddenly got sick and passed away, and there was only 6 of us left. And so they were searching as I was buried, and they found a void. They heard noises, they heard moaning, they found a void. They saw hands and body parts. And in a 20-foot circle, there were 4 people in a 20-foot circle. There were 4 survivors in a 20-foot circle at the whole complex. My friend Al, and then they found me. They found me and they put me on this long spine board. They strapped me down because the back of my head was split wide open. They strapped me down and they were running with me. And they placed me on the deck of a boat on the Hudson River. Boats came from New Jersey. They put me on the deck of a boat. They held my head closed and they said I was going to die if they couldn't get me to a hospital. Then there was another loud rumble and a roar, and everybody on the boat started screaming, oh my God, here comes the other tower. The other tower was collapsing. The North Tower flew across the street towards the Hudson River onto the deck of the boat. Everybody jumped overboard into the river as they were being hit with pieces of the building. Millions of shards of glass were raining down on me like hail. And my arms were strapped to my chest. My right index finger hit the release belt. My arms were free, but this arm was snapped in half backwards. I ripped the tape off of my neck. They thought I had a broken neck. And I rolled off the long spine board. and I felt a doorway. I jumped into a doorway, but I dove head first into the engine room of the boat, and the North Tower fell on top of the boat, and I got buried a second time, all alone in the engine room, and I'm suffocating all over again. And after about an hour of losing consciousness, all alone in the darkness with no air, I heard voices, and somebody was jumping on the deck of the boat, and somebody came into the engine room to start the motor, and they found me. And he screamed up to the deck above, there's a firefighter down here. The captain came down, took one look at me, said, get this boat out of here. And the boat skipped across the river to New Jersey, and paramedics were waiting on the Jersey side, waiting for people to be brought over by boat. And they came into the engine room, they got me out, and they put me on another long spine board. They got me out of the engine room, put me in the ambulance, rushed to the hospital, and I woke up in an operating room, but I didn't know where I was. I was in another state. I was in New Jersey. And they're cutting all my clothes off of me, stark naked. And on the inside of our coat, our firefighting coat, we all write our names at Tommy McNamara. So for 3 days, I was admitted as Tommy McNamara. For 3 days, I was declared dead and missing. Nobody knew where I was. And the only thing they found of me that night was my car in the back of the firehouse, fire safety education, all crumpled up. The firefighters about 1 o'clock in the morning called my house to say I didn't make it. So ladies and gentlemen, you're all in on a little secret. Batman and Robin's not real, Superman's not real, even Spider-Man's not real. The only children's rescue hero who ever came to life was Billy Blazes on the morning of September 11, 2001, when he would come to represent 343 firefighters who made a supreme sacrifice of their life in the greatest rescue effort anybody has ever witnessed. He was made in my likeness. Billy Blazes went on, ended up selling millions and millions of dollars to support my education program. So when I got out of the hospital, I started attending all the funerals in New York City, and that's something that I just needed to do. I didn't really like going to funerals because I always had some bad experiences. I remember when I was in high school, me and my friends, we took a shortcut through the cemetery to go to baseball practice. We were going through the cemetery, which is right across the street from my high school, and we're looking at all the headstones, looking at the names and the dates, walking past the lily ponds and the elm trees. And we came across a little brick building inside the cemetery with a sign that said crematorium, and smoke was coming out of the crematorium building. My friend Billy says, hey Joe, look at this, a crematorium, what's that? I said, I don't know, Billy. I said, I think maybe that's where they make those fancy cream donuts. He says, really? He says, you like cream donuts? He says, I love cream donuts. He says, I'll tell you what, stay, I got a couple of bucks, I'll go inside, I'll go get us a few. I said, all right. So I stood outside. Billy went inside to the crematorium. 10 minutes later, he came out. His nose was broken. He had 2 black eyes. He was missing 4 teeth. His face was swollen. He had hair ripped out of his head. His clothes were torn and tattered. And I said, Billy, what happened? He says, I don't know, Joe. He said, I went inside the crematorium. I looked around. I didn't see any cream donuts. But I saw a whole bunch of people all dressed in black. Some were sitting, some were kneeling, some were praying, some were crying. And all I said was, so what's cooking here? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we lost 343 firefighters and 60 police officers out of the 3,000 people. It was the greatest rescue effort anybody's ever witnessed. And of course, after I got out of the hospital and I could walk again, which took me a couple of months to get back on my feet, I won a very prestigious award by the mayor of New York City, Giuliani. The governor, George Pataki, honored me at the state address. I got to meet the new incoming mayor who was running for president against Joe Biden and the new fire commissioner. I got to throw out the first pitch at the Yankee game, and I got to work very closely in April of 2002 with our ex-president Donald Trump. That's a real picture of People magazine. Him and I raised a ton of money for children with pediatric AIDS. And there was a lot of controversy about Donald Trump. A lot of people say he's crazy. I say, you're right, he is crazy. He's crazy about making this country great again. So whether you like him or not, I'm going to tell you right now, people who didn't vote for him are paying the price right now. Matter of fact, I called on my wife when I landed. She said, how's things going? I said, things are great. I said, I love being here. I'm going to get to meet the Amish people. I said, when I come back, I said, I'm converting. She said, what do you mean you're converting? I said, I'm going to become Amish. She says, are you serious? She says, why? I said, did you see the price of the fuel in the gas stations? So ladies and gentlemen, 3 years after 9/11, as I was recuperating once again, hoping to get back into the firehouse in 2004, 3 years later, the fire department made a decision they weren't going to let me back again. and they're going to retire me. And I got a letter in the mail saying I was going to be officially retired. I didn't know where life was going to take me. I crawled into a corner with the letter, and I just broke down and cried. I almost had a nervous breakdown. I just didn't want to leave my job, but my time was up, and I didn't know where I was going to go from here. So I started off on a mission to make our country the United States of America. I wanted to resurrect patriotism because I saw it flying away 2 years after 9/11. And I wanted to bring patriotism back again. And I also wanted to make sure that we honored the men and women of the military who made the supreme sacrifice of their life, giving us a life that nobody else in this world can enjoy outside the United States of America. I want to make sure that we honor our police officers, our firefighters, our ambulance crews, and also especially those in the military who carried their graves honoring me and you. So I started off on making this the United States of America. I'm on this tour right now, resurrecting patriotism. I took a huge American flag all around the country, and I took that flag in 275 cities in 50 states in 50 weeks. I went from town to town to town, raising that flag in honor of America. And that whole flag, which I call the Patriot flag, would be in honor of every man and woman who ever served the United States in the military, memory of all those who died on 9/11, pays homage to every first responder who serves their community as police officers, firefighters, and EMTs and paramedics. And I flew that flag as far north as North Pole on Christmas Eve in 2010 in minus 20-degree weather. I flew it in Betsy Ross's house in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where she stitched the very first American flag. And on the date and anniversary where Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner, I flew that flag on September 14 at Fort McHenry. And on September 13, 2011, 2 days after the 10th anniversary, I was given the very rare privilege and the honor of raising the Patriot flag at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and being the keynote speaker. And then I was going down to Walter Reed Medical Center in Washington, D.C., honoring the men and women of the military. Here I am with 19-year-old U.S. Army Ranger Brendan Morocco. He came back missing both arms and both legs and one of his eyes. Brendan Morocco was just given a double human arm transplant, 2 prosthesis legs and a glass eye. And take a guess where Brendan Morocco is right now. He went back to Afghanistan to be with his unit again. So when you think about a hero, think about that kid, don't think about me. His girlfriend came down from New York City to Walter Reed Medical Center when he got back stateside from Afghanistan. She had an engagement ring. She didn't have a finger to put it on. She laid the engagement ring on Brendan's chest and she said, "Brendan, will you still marry me?" And he said, "Yes." And then, ladies and gentlemen, I was called down to the Pentagon. I didn't know what they wanted. I was given the Medal of Valor at the Pentagon. And then they took me to a private meeting. They asked me, "Joe, would you represent the United States at the trial in Guantanamo, Cuba?" Ladies and gentlemen, I'm in the middle of the biggest trial in history right now. I fly out of Andrews Air Force Base into Washington, D.C. I'm representing the United States right now at the trial in Guantanamo, Cuba against the 5 terrorists who orchestrated that attack. And I asked the lead prosecutor if I could take the Patriot flag with me. He says, "Joe, I love the idea of this Patriot flag." I said, "This will be the last mission for that flag." And I took the flag and I hung it outside the courthouse where all 5 of them were being held on trial. And I told them to look at that American flag. The size has nothing to do with its meaning or its importance. Just look at that flag. I said, on that flag are 13 red and white stripes, the most noted symbol of liberty, freedom, and justice for people in the United States and outside the United States. Those 13 red and white stripes represent the original 13 colonies, but there's a group field of 50 white stars. I said, those white stars were arranged in 9 rows and 11 columns, symbolizing the day you made the biggest mistake, challenging the integrity of this country and our people. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to guarantee you right now, I'm going to bring back justice for what they did to us. And this is me. This is me in the courthouse with all 5 of them. This is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. That's Osama bin Laden's right-hand man. We call him KSM for short. He's going to orchestrate and carry out the attack, okay? And he asked the lead judge, through his interpreter, he said, "Why are you wasting your time with this trial when you know that we did it?" He says, "We hate all Americans. We wish we could have killed more of you. We're martyrs. Put us to death and don't waste your time with the trial." But the trial keeps going on, and every day during the trial, as I'm there, at 12 o'clock, they stop the proceedings and give them all a piece of carpet to go outside and pray. And so I was interviewed on MSNBC what it was like for me to be in the courtroom with them. I said it's a bittersweet experience. Bitter that I get this opportunity to put faces on true hate and evil, but sweet knowing that our country is willing to give the best of justice to the worst of all human beings. And ladies and gentlemen, that's a statement about this country. And anybody that doesn't honor that, then you have no honor to be born with. And anybody who's not happy living in the United States of America, I let them in on a secret. There's 19,284 airports in the United States, 197 other countries around the world. If you're not happy living here, you have no problem finding a flight taking you to another country. You think you're going to find it better. And if you want to leave, you don't need us, we don't want you. Leave tomorrow, I'll buy you a ticket for you. So ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I want to share my very ironic story on how that whole started with a new rescue that will come to life. But I want to segue into some speaking points. Go join hands to brighten your company. You know what, that's in the fire department, that's how we all get along. Everybody comes together, we work as a team. That's very important in any company or corporation. You come together, you work as a team, you form friendships within your company, you get together for success. When I took on that project with the fire zone, I had no idea what I was doing. I had to bring people together that would help me get this project to fruition and to success. And to reach new heights, we keep building on each other's experiences, and together we open up new doors of opportunity in concrete roofing. Unleash your inner powers. When I designed the fire zone, I had to turn on my power and my talent. I had to feel the spark. Don't let that spark ever die whenever you feel it. When you're starting in a new endeavor, go out there and feel that spark and run with it. Because sometimes success is only an inch away. There was a time where we were going to scrap the plans. We were going to scrap the plans and give up the idea of the fire zone and lose the money we had invested. We didn't think we could pull the project off. But you know what? I hung in there, and success sometimes is only an inch away, and I turned that learning center into an Emmy Award-winning venue. And you know what? I made a lot of mistakes along the way in my personal life, in my work life. But you know what? When you make a mistake, you got to learn from it. And then in that project with the fire zone, I had to bring people together to help me get this project done. I call it Puzzle of Progress. Everybody had a piece that helped me bring this project to an award-winning venue. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I worked on Billy Blazes. He becomes this new rescue hero. And then 2 years ago, I got a call from Fisher-Price Corporation. They made a new rescue hero. They resurrected it, and the new rescue hero, I'm the only person in the world. I'm not bragging, I wish they wouldn't have done this, but I'm the only person in the world who ever had a rescue hero made in his likeness. That's me, Lieutenant Joe Torrillo. So in life, jump the hurdles, overcome your obstacles, face your challenges, and overcome those obstacles. Don't let any obstacle deter you. On September 11th, we climbed 220 flights of stairs. As we were watching up, we had to find another way to get around those obstacles to rescue the people in both of those towers. And you know, people always ask me about leadership. Lead the charge in your company. A leader shows the way. A leader leads from the front. That's why on September 11th, we lost the top echelon of our fire department. All our high-ranking chiefs were killed because we lead from the front. We even lost our minister, Father Michael Judge, who was the department chaplain. He was also killed in the attack. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about leadership, there's books written about it. I make leadership very simple. Leadership is first, you got to be firm.